You are listening to the Legacy Talk podcast hosted by James A. Jones, attorney at law and partner in the firm Turnbull, Bourne & Jones, PLLC in Tacoma. Attorney Jones is here to talk about how to best protect your family, assets, and wealth, pulling stories from his more than 20 years of helping families and business owners protect their assets, create their estate plans, preserve their wealth, and plan for the future. Nobody wants to think about estate planning, but life has a way of sneaking up on you, and at any moment, something unexpected could happen that will leave you regretting not having acted sooner. So join Attorney James A. Jones in the Legacy Talk podcast and together learn how to plan for your future today and have peace of mind tomorrow.
Hello and welcome to the Legacy Talk podcast. My name is Richard Matthews. I'm here with the host of your show, James Jones. And James, are you there?
I'm here, yeah.
Awesome. Glad to be doing a co-host with you on this very first sort of introductory episode to your podcast. What I wanted to start off with is just some quick questions for people who might have not heard you or this is their first episode that they're listening to. So let's dive in and just talk about who are you and who are your clients?
So my name's James Jones. I'm an estate and probate attorney here in Washington State, Tacoma, Washington. And I serve clients all across the board. You know, we're looking for people that are looking to solve their estate problems or issues before they become problems. We want to make sure that they have their affairs in order so nothing bad happens if something happens to them. All those things.
So you work in the estate planning for law space. What's the primary problem that you help your clients solve?
Well, the biggest problem is what happens when I die to all my stuff. You know, so that's our biggest problem.
And so what's your process look like for how you help people solve that problem?
So we do an intake process where we analyze everybody's estate individually and propose solutions that best solve their problem. The goal is to make estate administration simple and clean and clear, and that they're not going to cause any problems for the family later, hopefully.
So the important question, what is the Legacy Talk podcast, and what's your goal with putting this content together for your community?
Well, I think the podcast, the goal of it is to make people aware of things that can be done, get it more on the top of mind of people, because it is such an important thing to have your estate in order. You know, have a will or a trust and make sure that your affairs are in order so that your family can be protected and your wealth can be protected and your legacy can be protected.
Absolutely. So the goal of the podcast is to really be educational and let people, I guess, peek behind the curtain of what can be a scary thing to talk about because, let's be honest, estate planning has to do with death, and death is not always a fun topic to talk about. So you're just hopefully pulling the curtain back a little bit, letting people see what the inside of that world looks like before they jump in and actually maybe call an attorney or start working with someone like you.
That's right. Yeah. The process is super daunting, at least in most people's minds. But in reality, when you're working with a professional, it's not nearly as difficult as people might think. And so we just want to make people aware of that fact.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know because we've done a little bit of a preview. You and I have been working together on the content for this podcast. You got a couple of series coming up on things like, I think we've got some commandments for estate planning and some frequently asked questions and some myths and truths that are on there. I know, so you got several series that are planned, and you're probably going to be even getting into potentially telling some client stories and case studies and whatnot. Is there anything that you're particularly excited about that you're going to be discussing on your podcast coming up?
Yeah, the 10 Commandments of Estate Planning, and just sort of issues that we want people to learn about. Maybe have some clients, some other experts in the field to chat with us about certain topics in their realm, and just to get people talking and thinking about this process and fixing their estate, basically.
So I know obviously the purpose of a podcast like this is to be a resource for your community. And, I appreciate you taking the time and effort to put this together. How often can your listeners and community expect for you to be releasing new content here on this podcast?
Well, we're looking to release a new episode every week on the podcast.
Awesome. So every week. And then where will they be able to find your podcast?
So they can go to my website, joneslegacylaw.com/podcast. And the podcast will be posted there, and also wherever you find your podcasts on your favorite platform, it'll be there too.
Yeah, so the links to all of those will actually be on the jameslegacylaw.com/podcast. We'll have links to, iTunes, YouTube, wherever your favorite place to listen to podcasts is. And then, of course, any of the social media platforms you might follow James Legacy Law on, they'll be there as well. And, James, again, thank you so much for taking the time to just hop on and do this really quick introductory episode to your podcast. I know for anyone who's listening, the good stuff comes in the next episode. This is just a, hello and welcome. And so welcome to the community if this is your first episode. And James, thank you so much for taking the time and your expertise to put this podcast together for your community.
Great. Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you for listening to the Legacy Talk podcast by attorney James A. Jones. If you found today's episode helpful, we ask that you like and follow us on all major platforms so you don't miss out on the latest episode. If you have questions for Attorney Jones, reach out at info@joneslegacylaw.com or visit our website at joneslegacylaw.com. Join us again next week for another episode of the Legacy Talk podcast.